les verbes and er. So in these notes, we're going to learn how to do something that's pretty exciting, how to conjugate regular ER verbs. Verbs like parler, travailler, écouter, étudier, manger, jouer, all of those different verbs that we see on our vocab list that end in ER are considered to be regular ER verbs because they follow the same pattern when we use them in sentences. In order to use these correctly in sentences, we first have to understand what an infinitive is. An infinitive is considered to be the basic form of the verb. In English, it means to, and then whatever the action is, like to dance, to work, to speak. In French, an infinitive is going to end in ER, IR, or RE if it's a regular verb. Now there's other verbs out there that are irregular verbs, like we've already seen the verb avoir. Avoir is the infinitive, which means to have. Now typically we don't use the infinitive of a verb in sentences. We can, and we do from time to time, like when we want to say, I like to sing, or I don't like to study. But a lot of times we just want to say, I sing, or I am studying, and we want to use the conjugated form of the verb in a sentence. So in order to use a verb in a sentence that's not the to form, we have to conjugate the verb. In order to conjugate the verb, we first need to find the stem, and we do that by taking off the ER, or those last two letters of the infinitive. So if you take the verb aimer for an example, to find the stem, we would take off the ER. The letters that we're left over with, A, E, M, are the stem of that verb. When we use that verb in a sentence, we'll find the stem, and then our second step is to add the appropriate ending for the subject. Just like with the verb avoir, there was a different spelling that went along with each of the different subjects. The same thing happens with regular ER verbs. However, the stem will be common with each of the subjects. We just have a different ending that we add to that stem. So let's use this chart to help us to learn the endings. If our subject is je, we'll add the letter E to the end of our stem. If our subject is tu, we'll add ES. If our subject is il, elle, or on, we'll add the letter E, just like we do with je. If our subject is nous, we'll add the letters O and S. If our subject is vous, we'll add EZ. And our subject is il or elle pluriel, we'll add ENT. And I want to point out that that ENT is always silent. We'll never pronounce those three letters. So the best way to understand this is to see an example. So let's take the verb parler, which we know means to speak. Parler, written like that, is the infinitive. When we see it written like that, it's translated as to speak. But if we want to say I speak, or you speak, or he speaks, we have to first find the stem and then add the right ending for each of the subjects. So the je form will look like this. Parle, je parle, I speak. The tu form, tu parles. The il, elle, or on form, the third person singular, il parle. Nous parlons. Vous parlez. Il parle. So you can see that the letters without the ER are common in every single form. We've just added the appropriate ending that goes with each of the subjects. It's important to note that in English we have many more present tenses than we have in French. So when you see je parle, there's three different ways that this could actually be translated depending on the context. So je parle can simply be translated as I speak, or it could be translated as I am speaking. The French don't have this present progressive tense, so je parle can just simply be I'm speaking. Or it could be I do speak. So all three of those English translations are the same as just je parle in French. A couple other things to note. Pronunciation. You might have noticed that the form that go with je, tu, il pluriel, and elle pluriel all are pronounced exactly the same. So if you look at these, they're not spelled exactly the same, but they're pronounced the same, because if you remember the rules for all of the silent letters that exist in French, there's a lot of letters that we don't pronounce. So je parle, tu parles, il parle, elle parle, elle parle, Parle sounds the same with each of these. They just look different on paper. Liaison is when you link the final consonant with the next word, and the final consonant of the subjects vous, nous, il pluriel, and elle pluriel, you can see they all end in the letter S, which is typically silent. However, if the next word starts with a vowel, so if your verb starts with a vowel or a silent H, you will actually pronounce that S like a Z. So if you look at this example sentence, nous aimons le français, typically we pronounce that word nous, but because aimons starts with a vowel, we pronounce that S like a Z. Nous aimons le français. That's what we call liaison. Now the opposite of liaison is elision. And elision, we've seen this before with the verb avoir, is when you drop the E and je when a vowel sound follows it. Because we can't have the and je and a vowel together because it sounds too choppy, we drop the E, replace it with an apostrophe, and kind of link the word je with the next word. We've seen this before in the expression j'aime or the expression j'adore, but j'aime aller au cinéma is an example of how you drop the E in the word je when a vowel follows it. Let's also talk about the negative. Now, remember that when you want to make a sentence negative, or you want to say that you do not do something, you add the word ne before the verb and the word pas after the verb. So ne and pas kind of act like parentheses, and they surround the verb, only the verb, that one word, in a sentence to make it negative. Remember also that ne is going to be an apostrophe when a verb begins with a vowel sound. So you'll drop that E when the next word, and ne when the next word starts with a vowel. So in order to say I don't like math, you would say je n'aime pas les maths. Or to say I don't study, je n'étudie pas. Okay, just to kind of make sure that you understand the way of conjugating a regular ER verb, I want you to complete this verb chart with the verb étudier in your notes. So you'll remember étudier means to study. So go through and figure out how to say I study, you study, and fill out the rest of this chart, find the stem, and add the appropriate endings. That does it for les verbes in ER. I'll just tell you that this is one of the most common things that we will be using all year long. So it's really important that you have a good understanding of this. Let me know if you have some questions, and we'll talk about them in class tomorrow. Au revoir les élèves.